Hello, I'm Dr. Rhonda Davies from Queensborough Community College and the American Museum of Natural History.
Hi, I'm Jessica Wolk-Stanley from Riverdale Kingsbridge Academy, and I'm also an alum of the Master of Teaching program at the American Museum of Natural History.
Hi, I am Vicki Yuan, Earth Science teacher from Franklin D. Roosevelt High School in Brooklyn, and I'm also an alum of the Master of Teaching program at the American Museum of Natural History.
Together with Dr. Julie Contino, a science educator at the American Museum of Natural History, we are presenting a poster titled Earth Science Place-Based Education at the American Museum of Natural History. We would like to acknowledge Catherine W. Davis for her generous founding support of the Master of Arts in Teaching MAT program, as well as leadership support from the Shelby Cullum Davis Charitable Fund. The MAT program is supported in part by the National Science Foundation and the U.S. Department of Education.
Place-based education focuses on local and regional environments and physical spaces to pull together different ways of knowing them through creating and attaching meaning. In this study, the authors leverage place-based science teaching for students ranging from high school to graduate school through the use of the American Museum of Natural History, a local space for students to construct a sense of meaning and attachment to science. The several field trips to AMNH utilize its familiar landmark status in New York City to reveal meaning and relationships with science content knowledge and skills, and build on its familiarity to connect science with physical, social, and cultural influences. The informal educational setting of AMNH also allows students to gain more knowledge about the process of doing science and engage directly with scientists.
The museum has a 15-month intensive Master of Arts in Teaching Earth Science program as part of the Richard Gilder Graduate School. Student cohorts are based at the museum, as well as assigned Department of Education middle and high schools in high needs areas, so the museum becomes a second home to these students. The halls are a great venue for immersive educational activities, especially before the doors are open to visitors. Here we present 3 activities that increase student motivation, high order thinking, and support students in developing their own activities for their classrooms. These investigations mostly use the museum's dioramas, reconstructed landscapes, which inspired connection to particular locations, while also forging connections to the museum and community for a multidisciplinary place-based experience.
For example, in the diorama of Crater Lake, Oregon, it evokes a very strong emotional connection for me. I'm a native Oregonian, and seeing such a familiar location in this lovingly crafted scene brings back happy memories for me of hiking and camping at almost this exact spot. When we used this diorama in an activity where we had to locate ourselves in a topographic map of the area, I was also connecting my present circumstance as an MAT student and earth science teacher to my childhood.
Students conducted hall activities to look at plate tectonics, fossilization potential of landscapes, and finding locations on topographic maps. Follow-up discussions with their cohort and museum scientists, such as paleontologist Dr. Melanie Hopkins, reinforced the process of doing science. Near the end of semester, introductory geology students at Queensborough Community College are required to independently travel from Queens to Manhattan to visit the museum's Hall of Planet Earth. Here, they complete a worksheet representing 20% of their laboratory assessment. The visit supports learning of the course content, a sense of place within the city, and often broadens the students' geographic range within the city, and also exposes them to future study and career options.
At the end of the Rocks and Mineral Unit, all earth science classes, mostly 10th graders, visited AMNH this February. With booklets that encouraged exploration and choice, students investigated the rock exhibits in the Hall of Planet Earth, and then they visited the Hall of Mexico and Central America to examine how everyday and ceremonial objects use earth materials. This visit supported exploration, fun, and choice. Students got to wander around and choose objects to learn more about and sketch. It also helped students connect with science as students discussed ores with museum scientist Dr. Stephen Jarrett, and it helped students develop a sense of place as they investigated how earth materials were used in pre-Columbian Mexico and Central America, a part of the world that many of my students have deep cultural connections to.
For the case study of FDRHS students, the field trip served as a summative activity to review the unit Dynamic Earth and serve as a reference for the upcoming unit, Rocks and Minerals. During this field trip, students engaged in several strands of informal science learning to better develop their science identities through interactive, structured activities and create personal scientific meaning of the city they live in. This visit supported informal science learning. For example, students were excited and motivated to learn by being primed with interactions with butterflies from around the world. Students participated in scientific meaning-making of the local environment, as seen in the Central Park portion of the field trip with Dr. Stephen Jarrett. They also participated in the scientific process by speaking with the scientist and interacting with exhibits to make predictions and observations.
The majority of science learning occurs outside of the classroom, in informal science environments, or ISEs. This includes museums. Adult Americans have some of the highest rates of science literacy in the world, although the U.S. has declining education funding compared to other countries. This paradox likely results from the array of free choice learning opportunities available to the general public. An advantage of place-based learning is that it can be adapted for many different settings. This is an especially useful strategy for earth science, since much of what we teach is associated with very specific locations. Place-based education in a natural history museum helps bridge the disconnect between the personal and academic lives of students. As they interact with the space, exhibits, and objects in AM&H, students are better able to synthesize new information and add it to previously existing schema. In today's cultural climate, with rampant science skepticism and a proliferation of science misinformation, it is vital that educators design and execute field trips that are as meaningful as possible. When students are enjoying themselves in an ISE, they are more open to new ideas and new ways of thinking. On field trips, by accessing prior connections to places and fostering new place connections, there is a potential for students to develop what can be lifelong positive associations with cultural institutions like the American Museum of Natural History.
The elements of the AM&H field trips that were meaningful for all students include deliberate leveraging of sense of place using museum exhibits to connect to particular locations, while also forging connections to the museum, using the museum to contextualize place with the science.
Scheduling the field trip so that it aligns with curriculum and accesses prior learning.
Using available resources from the museum, such as meeting a scientist and arranging for a cart with objects that students can touch and handle.
Planning immersive activities to increase motivation and higher order thinking.
Incorporation of fun in a visit to elicit positive emotional responses.
A debrief with a scientist or teacher on site or in the classroom to process what students learned and observed on the trip. This will also be helpful for students who are not able to go on the field trip.
We thank you for watching this, and we do hope you will join us for our live session on Wednesday, the 13th. And we also hope that we'll see you soon at the Museum of Natural History. Bye-bye.
Bye.